bringing the baggage from the last relationship into the new one. This is a common thing that happens more so with women because they have easier sexual access than men.
Sure.
Women are notoriously known to rebound quicker, but it only looks like that on the surface level because they could just a woman can go out and get a man easily. It's not even a joke. Like a guy can't do this unless he's like a really high level player and he's worked on, money muscles, game frame. He understands women. He has access to women. He can unhealthily do that. And a lot of men in the red pill community do that because they're really good with women, but they don't have to sit there and deal with the things. So
Yes, I was
how
guilty of that, by the way, back.
me too. Are you kidding me? You don't think I can be drowning in pussy right
Yeah.
now? You know, I
Yeah.
but like the right thing to do is to feel the pain and go through it. But how does jumping into a new relationship too early after a relationship has terminated previously, how do you carry baggage from the last relationship into the new one and how does it show up?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. And so we are a product of a lot of things that we have we generally don't have control over, but we do by setting the framework up. So for example, we're a product of habits, right? Habits that we're just unaware of. But when we become aware of habits, that are more productive and things we're doing that aren't so good, what can we do? We can change those habits. But then those habits have to become unconscious again because you can't think about every small thing, how you brush your teeth, how you get your pants on in the morning. Like you can't think of every small thing all the time. Our brain is not, our conscious mind is not equipped for that. And so, for example, habits dictate our success in a lot of ways. Someone like yourself, who's a successful man, you have a lot of success habits built that you don't even realize 'cause you don't think about it. And
Mhm.
and so when you're working with somebody who wants to be more successful, a lot of what we're doing is we're building new habits. We're saying, hey, bro, that thing you do is really a bad habit. This you got to do your morning differently. You got to do this differently, right? And they go, oh, me, and they start building better habits. And then the other side of it too is another thing we can't control, but we can with awareness is our environment. And so, like when we put our habits into an environment, the environment responds to our action and sends a
Right.
message back to us. So, for example, and I'm getting to the breakup part, but this is to help people understand. For example, if I have a bunch of really like toxic friends who drink constantly, right? If those are my friend groups, I could say to myself, oh, I'm going to stop drinking. I'm going to, have some better ways of thinking about things. And then if I'm still hanging out with these guys all the time, what happens is I fall to my old habits because their stimulus and how they treat me, they start treating me like the old me, right? Because that's what they know. And so that causes me to sort of fall into my old behaviors and I'm in the old environment. Next thing you know, I'm finding myself maybe drinking with them and doing the same old shit. And then I later on go, what am I doing? Right. Well, the problem is the environment is stimulating the behavior, and we're very susceptible to that. No human being isn't. We know this from something called the Stanford prison experiment, if anyone's familiar with that. And so
Yeah.
what we have to do is we have to also be able to change or control our environment so that the stimulus that comes back to us is more productive for what we want. We have to set our, it's call it stacking the deck. It's what you do in combat. So you win in combat, even the guy's a better fighter or something, or a better shooter or whatever. You take these little advantages and you stack the deck in your favor so you can win. Now, let's take that to relationships now. I have unresolved things I'm not sure about, old behaviors I'm not aware of from a previous a relationship. I get into a relationship too quickly. My mindset is to, still pick apart these things and to, learn better behaviors, be a better version of me. Nobody goes into it going, oh, I'm just going to be the old me, right? They all want to be better. What happens is they get into it with a new girl. And now the new girl, that stimulus of being with that new girl and little things she'll do, stuff that'll happen, causes us to react it to the environment, right? Or to the relationship, like the old version of us, because we fall to our level of training. We don't rise to our expectations. It's another saying from the gunfighting world, right? We fall to our training. We don't rise to our expectations. So if I haven't instilled some better habits and mental framework and ways of understanding myself and showing up in the world, I get into it with a girl. The girl stimulates, do you know what I mean? It gives him a bunch of stimulus, which is going to be similar to being in a relationship before. And a lot of the same responses are going to end up happening because I haven't trained new responses yet. I haven't formulated a different way of thinking yet. Even though I may be in the process of questioning it, I'm not solid in my new way of thinking. So I fall to my old patterns. And if I'm falling to the old behaviors, getting the stimulus from somebody else to do so, I find myself then taking on the old identity. I haven't changed anything. And then what's worse is I have damage now from the previous relationship too. I have bad feelings, anxiety, stuff that went badly, which is going to not only cause me to fall to old patterns of behaviors, but then I'm going to respond what we call maladaptive or poorly to those things. So not only am I going to act like I did before to a lot of degrees, but now I'm going to have new frustration, new anxiety, maybe resentment on the new girl, maybe different ways of coping with the possibility of future damage or pain with the new girl. So maybe I become detached and do some toxic game, or don't, stonewall her, don't call her back, or I get into start criticizing her because I don't want her to be like my old girlfriend. So I'm going to criticize that problem away. Or, these are things that guys will end up doing. They become more toxic in the new relationship because they haven't gotten a new framework of better version of themselves. They fall to the old behavior, but that old behavior also signals pain. And so then they do maladaptive things to avoid the pain. They become worse each relationships. And this is what we see with a lot of girls.
Really?
Yeah. Yeah.
Are you sure?
A lot of people, yeah, of course. Of course. Why do you think a girl who's 37 years old, to use this woman as an example, there's plenty of 37-year-old women who become better. But why do you think a lot of 37, 38-year-old women who've been through the divorce machine are absolutely abysmal partners to be with? Oh, I'm not going to put up with anything anymore. I dealt with that in my first marriage. And no, I know that like they come in like they know the game with a level of arrogance. They got attachment issues. They got all these issues they haven't dealt with. And then as soon as you, as the guy dating that, you're 45-year-old guy dating some decent looking 37-year-old divorcee, as soon as you act a certain way or whatever, and you're not necessarily doing anything wrong, you're just doing what people do in human dynamics, she reacts toxically, right? Because that she gets into criticizing you or getting defensive because she hasn't improved herself from her previous relationships. And she's gotten more and more, signals of pain and, trying to avoid pain and problems too, because when she gets new stimulus. So in other words, like 37-year-old girl that improves herself, she has you act a way, right? A certain way. She is improved herself. She's not going to signal that way of acting as a danger or a threat in the same way because she's a different, better person. And she responds now better, right? That's how the healthier person acts. But when people carry their baggage, which most people do, they don't respond better. They respond worse. You know what I mean? And so they take with them this emotional difficulty and they carry it with them to new relationships with no better conditioned behaviors or responses, and this is
That's
why.
so
Yeah.
this okay, so I'm gonna try and because it's a lot to digest. So I just want to kind of see if I can simplify it and give you a summary and tell me if I'm correct. So basically, we have bad emotions, bad feelings that are unresolved in ourselves from the past relationship. We haven't brought peace to those things. And we enter in this new relationship, and then those unresolved issues manifest in actions.
Sure. Absolutely.
Is
So
that what you're saying?
yeah, yeah. So let's think about this, right? Let's say a guy picks a girl. Let's use concrete examples because your audience is probably like this. All
Me
right.
too. No, I am too. To be honest with you, I am too.
All
Because
right.
it's a lot.
I know. I know. I'm so bad at sound buddy too. So I'm bad at
No, you're
YouTube.
good. That's why we're here.
You're good at
We need
YouTube.
we need the expert. We need the expertise.
And so, like, all right, so let's say a guy picks a girl who has some toxic, we'll say unproductive patterns with her interactions with guys and social media and stuff like that, right? And he's like, well, I don't care if she shows her cute picture on Instagram and gets a bunch of likes from dudes. And yeah, she talks to a few guys in her DMs, but it doesn't really matter. Like, she's with me, whatever. Like, yeah, I'm not even gonna check or I'm gonna ignore it. Or he doesn't even like he isn't aware of it. He doesn't want to be aware of it. He rationalizes those things away. So he has no frame in his boundaries or standards with those things. Let's pretend. And he's
Mhm.
just a guy doing relationships. And then let's say that relationship goes for 6 months and she starts to feel, for whatever reason, a little bit of detachment from him. Maybe there's, he gets busy at work and there's a little less attention. Who knows, right? And so then she starts amping up her attention to guys in her social media. Some of those conversations get inappropriate. She starts setting up a monkey branch, starts setting up a mate switch, right? And so then she, let's say she breaks up with him and it's a dramatic breakup, and he finds out that she's been like entertaining other dudes. She's in another dude's inside of her within a couple weeks, all the things happen, right? And so like he now is traumatized from that. And he had a previous behavior, which was not having a good framework or boundary around how to handle men in the first place in your relationship. So now this guy, he dives into red pill theory and he gets a negative mindset because he latches onto that information about women in general. He's attached to the ex too. So he's checking her social media, he's off to her, pictures, wishing it was him. He's trying to get her back, he's doing all the toxic things. She's participating. There's some back and forth. That blows up. He ends up dating again later, doesn't improve anything, gets in with a new girl, right? And so with a new girl, let's say she has some better social media behavior, but she's not perfect. He then comes out to that girl and starts being draconian and tries to make her delete all of her social media. You know what I mean? And starts getting insecure responses to friends and other things like that, right? He's and he doesn't recognize the things he did in the previous relationship that stimulated the girl to have that sort of, detachment and start to detach. Like, so when he gets busy at work, he still doesn't pay any attention to her, gets complacent with sex life, right? Sex turns into like the same sex every time. There's no variety. Like all of these little things that cause him to lose the last relationship, he's unaware of. He still does those little things now with the new girl, but now he is like toxic head about something because he's afraid of being cheated on. And he's now over that stuff. And then that girl's like, dude, this guy, and he gets like emotionally, unhinged, maybe on a Friday night where he drinks, breaks a glass in front of her and wants to grab her phone and break her phone because some friend from high school, hearted her photo from 3 years ago. Like, you know what I mean? Like, this is the stuff like guys will then just like bring toxicity to the relationship. He's trying to defend it. He's trying to defend the himself from potential harm, and he's got none of the improved behaviors. So he's not like better at sex, for example, which maybe the sex was only okay in the last relationship. He's not better at, seducing his girl, keeping frame when he's busy. So he can go be busy and be detached for a few days, but still have her thinking about him. For example, that's like relationship game, right? Like he's not improving things about himself that would make him a better relationship partner. Let's say handling arguments. Let's say in his last relationship, all the arguments were kind of they either just danced around the topic or they stonewalled each other, and nobody had any productive way of handling a problem. He still brings that problem into the new relationship. Now, let's take that same guy and say he takes a break. He detaches from the old framework with that girl, which means now he has no idea how to behave with a new girl outside of the old frame. That he has a blank slate almost now, right? And so he's like, I don't know, my identity in relationships was with this other girl. So I don't have that other girl. I detached like I'm supposed to. So let me look at what happened in the other relationship. Oh, gee, I did that kind of, annoying thing with her when I ignored her. I did, this thing. I handled arguments wrong. My frame in the beginning was bad about social media. There are a lot of warning signs and red flags about this girl that if I had noticed that before, shouldn't have gotten a relationship with her, like maybe next girl I won't get in a relationship with if those flags are present, you know what I mean, until she improves those things, right? Like he gets all this insight and how to be different, behave different, show up different in a relationship for other women. And then he also he's not hyper anxious about being harmed. This girl mate switched and did some things, but he knows how to handle that in a healthy way in the future. Now he gets in it with the next girl. If the next girl has, some social media behaviors like they all do that aren't that great, before the commitment, he just says, yeah, you know what? I mean, just in a commitment, there are single behaviors and there are relationship behaviors that you need to do on social media nowadays. Makes that statement. Well, what do you mean? Yeah, I want to make sure I'm not signaling to other dudes. I'm not entertaining DMs to random guys, stuff, shit like that. And then she's like, yeah, I get what you mean. And so she falls into a framework because he communicates in a non abrasive, divisive way what his
Mhm.
boundary and standard is. He's not afraid of this outcome because he knows that if he communicates well, has good awareness of whether with this girl's behaviors, he's not going to allow these things to degrade into cheating like it did before. And he's showing up better in the relationship. So he's more attractive to that partner